Welcome in, degenerates. This is Important Nonsense. I am your host, Mason Cameron, at PFF_Mace on Twitter. And joining me, as per usual, back this week, my partner in crime, Vishaal Gupta, at Vishaal_Gupta95 on Twitter. V, how are you doing today? I know you're doing a little bit of traveling there. How's everything going? How are you living? We missed you last week.
Living good. I know I missed the last couple of weeks. I missed everybody. I appreciate you holding down the fort, Mason. Glad to be back, though, for the stretch run of the regular season. It is going to be a fun final few weeks before we get into the playoffs. So just happy to break into some of these games.
And I don't think there's a much better way to start than how we started off the week with Thursday night football, because that was an incredible game and we have a lot of really good games going down the stretch. This week, there's not as many really high profile games. There's a few, some teams are out of it, but we do have some games that have some critical importance in the race down the stretch. So we're going to be talking about a few of those today. But of course, first and foremost, if you guys aren't following us, make sure you guys go do it. Hit subscribe right under here, Important Nonsense on YouTube. And of course, go and follow us over on our Twitch at Nonsense FF, and make sure you're getting in on that. We have shows all the time. We do the betting show every Friday. We're live a little bit earlier than usual, but of course, you got Jason and the guys going live before games for start sits, Wednesday, Monday, all the type of stuff for your fantasy team. And I think, we're right in the midst of the fantasy playoffs, and there's a lot of stuff coming down to the wire. So make sure you guys get in on that. And of course, if you guys want to support us, go to importantnonsense.com to become a supporter. That's how you get into our Discord server. You can ask us all your questions over there. And of course, you guys can ask the guys about the fantasy stuff as well. And of course, if you guys are new to this show, we don't go over every single game on the slate. We go through a few of our favorites and some angles that we're targeting. So if you have any questions about those games or any questions about games we didn't cover here today, make sure you head over into that Discord and ask us there. And of course, V, first and foremost, we've got to talk about this Thursday night game, which was a doozy. The LA Rams take on the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks in this one come away with the win late in overtime off the 2-point conversion. I mean, this was an incredible game. All week, we saw the Rams favored at about 1.5, and we saw that swing pretty late to the Seahawks favored by 1.5. But throughout it all, books weren't really too swayed. They were keeping the line on the money line very close to a pick 'em. So frequently you could take it on either direction and really still come out with the pick 'em. It was looking solid for the Rams to start the game. It was about 30-14 for most of the game there, or late down the stretch. And of course, the Seahawks came storming back, forced overtime, won this game, won on the money line. But unfortunately, just depending on where you got it, they did cover if you got them as the road dog at +1.5, or they failed to cover if you got them at the -1.5 closing line. But again, like I said, the real action was on the money line here. I mean, what can we say about this game? It had everything. It had intrigue. It had defense. It had offensive explosion. It had craziness with a 2-point conversion that was that everybody thought was incomplete. And then we go back and look at it. Backwards pass recovered in the end zone by Zach Charbonnet. And that's a good 2-point conversion, which is really interesting because I think that brings up a not super, frequently seen rule where on fourth downs, on a fumble on fourth down, the only player that can recover that ball and advance it is the player who fumbled. Now, that's not the case on 2-point conversions, which we just saw. That might be something that the NFL Rules Committee looks at at the end of the season here. But, that was a big, change in this game that tied up that game after I don't know. It really was tough for the Seahawks to get going at some points during the game. You had some production from Kenneth Walker, but he had a couple of interceptions from Sam Darnold. The big surpriser for me is I was on actually the Rams on the money line, but I really wanted to take the Seahawks, so I'm not really too mad about them, taking away the win. But the big thing here was that the Rams 8-1 against the spread as road favorites, which they were for most of the week. On the inverse side of that, the Seahawks have really struggled to win these high profile games at home. They were 1-6 against the spread as the home dog. So this is something that, was an interesting play out for both of these teams. And it'll be something, I don't think we're done seeing these teams. I think we're going to see round 3. And just for the football gods, I really hope that we see round 3 come the playoffs. But V, I've talked enough. Tell me what you made of this matchup and what you came away seeing in this one. Oh, I may have lost V on the connection there. But when V does get back, we will talk more about that game as well. But super, super interesting matchup there with what we saw. I don't know that we'll see any more games quite as interesting as that one. V, I lost you there for a second. I've got you back there. Tell me how you took and what you took away from this Thursday night game. Oh, I might have lost V again. A little bit of a connection issue, but that's not the biggest deal. We can keep rolling, and as V gets these figured out, we'll actually jump back into it because we have a lot of games to cover here, and it's gonna be a good one. The first game on the schedule here that I do want to talk about is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to close that for a minute. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Carolina Panthers is going to be a good one. That's going to be an early game on the slate where, this has some big implications here with the NFC South. The Carolina Panthers currently in first place. Tampa Bay Buccaneers right behind them. It's tied. There's going to be a lot of fireworks in this game, and a lot can come down to it. I was actually a little bit shocked to see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers be -2.5 on the road here, but I can see where the situation lies. And of course, the game total on this one, 45.5. That's where I'm going to be attacking with the game total, because frankly, what we've seen with both of these offenses is a lot of explosion. The Panthers at times, they no-show, but we've seen what they are capable of when they come up against lesser defenses. And frankly, I think that that's what we see out of the Tampa Bay coverage unit right now. And sorry, trying to link up with V here, make sure that his internet is out and working again. But yeah, so I think the big thing here, when we talk about both of these teams, we've seen improvements from the Bucs on the offensive side of the football, particularly when they've gotten more healthy, getting back Bucky Irving, getting back Mike Evans. We've seen them become explosive. We saw what they did last week. Now, they fell apart down the stretch, but I think that's more due to their defense than their offense. But what we've seen is that they can produce when they are at full strength. And that's the same thing for the Carolina Panthers. When the Panthers are playing well and they are taking an aggressive approach, they can push the ball down the field with the best of them. It's not too many weeks ago that we saw Bryce Young throw for 448 when they really had to have it. We've seen them beat teams like the LA Rams. We've seen them really press the issue when they have to have it. And I think that this is going to be one of those games where they have to have it. And frankly, when we come up against a Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, and frankly, the Panthers defense as well, these are two defenses that have struggled in coverage this season. When we talk about the bottom 5 defenses in percentage of plays earning positive EPA, both of these teams rank in the bottom 5, particularly over the last 8 or so games down the stretch. So what I want to see is both of these teams really push the issue, push the football. I want to see the Carolina Panthers not take that reserved approach, because that's something that could kill them against a Buccaneers defense that is actually rather strong on the ground but struggles in coverage. So that's going to be one place that I like to see. We saw what happened last week. Kirk Cousins, a guy that hadn't really been the same quarterback we saw, prior to his benching earlier last season, or at late down the stretch last season. But what we have seen is he came back against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense and really excelled, throwing for over 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, and that all came without his top target in Drake London. Kyle Pitts had a career game in that one, and that's something I think we could continue to see against the Carolina Panthers team, who has struggled against the tight ends, who has struggled out wide. I think we will see a lot of that in this one. And then, of course, the same thing goes with that Buccaneers team. We talked about that pass funnel defense, where strong up front, weaker on the back end. If the Carolina Panthers take that aggressive approach, like I think they can, we can very much hit the over on this one. V, do I have you back? I hear you. Yep, I hear you. I hear you. So we're gonna. I do want to backtrack just slightly. I want to backtrack just slightly. We're gonna be jumping around a little bit, but I want to hear your inputs in what you thought about that Rams Seahawks game before if in case we lose you again. Yeah, yeah, incredible. I might have lost you there again, V, but what a game. It was phenomenal to see that come down. I was actually very impressed and happy to see those overtime rules. And of course, Sam Darnold, a little bit of, hesitance there, a little bit of issues, but honestly, I would take Sam Darnold over a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL right now. And one reason in particular, because he is resilient. He might not be the best quarterback, but he is always going to try to bounce back. He stays level headed, and that's something that is going to pay dividends for this Seahawks team down the stretch here. And of course, V, if I still got you there, if I can still hear you, I might have lost you there at the end, but I got you now. I got you now. We're talking Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Carolina Panthers. I'm on the over on this one, 45 and a half. I want to get your input on this. I think two defenses that have struggled on the back end. I think this can be a passing rich environment. What do you see in that matchup? We're coming in and out a little bit. We are dropping in and out a little bit. We will try to keep it going here. See if we don't get V back. But yeah, I'm V is going to be on the side here of the Carolina Panthers, and I can see it. I really do. Especially just from the anecdotal standpoint of the Panthers winning and covering every other game on their slate. And really, it feels like we get the best from this Panthers team when it is do or die time, when we do come up against a quality opponent, like we saw with that Rams team the other day or a couple weeks ago, a few weeks ago. They're coming off the bye. They're rested. I'm interested to see how this one happens. And if we look back to this, I mean, it has been a doozy for the Carolina Panthers as the last 10 games load. I might have V back here. V, finish up for us. Tell us what you're on the side of Carolina +3 here. Tell us a little bit more about that. Yeah, no, and I agree. And if you look at just some of the trends here, we're looking at 0-6 against the spread for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over that span. And of course, we've seen some, touch and go things for the Carolina Panthers, but it always comes down to it used to be the odd weeks that they were great, but they had that bye week. We're going into this every other game thing where they excel, and I think we're going to come out and we're going to see them be a positive team in a high leverage moment because I think it was Dave Canales was saying, I want to say it was Dave Canales. I don't remember who to attribute the quote to, but they were saying, hey, they've seen their best. We've seen them at their best, but no one's seen us at our best. And I think that that's a positive note where they can actually figure this out. I mean, we just saw this team take down the LA Rams just a few weeks ago, and I'm confident that this is a much better team than we see on a week to week basis. And if they can really just take that aggressive approach, they can be good. The next game on our slate here, though, V, is the Atlanta Falcons at the Carolina Panthers. Falcons -2.5 point road favorites here. Game total on this one, 48.5. Tell me what side you're riding with. Yeah, and this morning on the PFF betting show, I was talking with Ben Lindsay, and one of his biggest picks of this week is actually going to be Atlanta over on the team total at 25 and a half points. And I mean, I lean into that too. And I think that you could definitely see that, particularly with this game total being 47 and a half, 48 and a half. And again, that's another point that we always make here is make sure you guys are shopping early, shopping often so that you get the best market value you can. But of course, I completely agree. And what we've seen with Atlanta, and I talked about it previously when we talked about the Tampa Bay game, is we saw what Kirk Cousins was able to do against a Tampa Bay defense without his top target. And now he's going to be facing an Arizona defense that has just struggled mightily this year. They have a lot of injuries. They have a lot of guys up and down. A bunch of people dealing with illnesses in their locker room right now, with sort of the flu feels like going around the NFL a little bit this week. And of course, so I'm right there with you. I think that the over at 47 and a half, 48 and a half is definitely going to be a great play in that one. And we'll just jump right into the next game on the slate here, which is one that's near and dear to my own heart. The near and dear to my own heart. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars heading into Denver to take on my Broncos. Broncos favored about 3.5 points. Game total on this one, about 46 and a half, 47 and a half, depending on where you're shopping. And this one has a lot of implications. Broncos, only team in the AFC to secure a playoff berth. They are the current number one seed. But of course, we've got teams right behind them. You got the Patriots, you got the Jags. They are playing for that playoff position, trying to get into position. And of course, when we talk about the Jags, not far behind them are the Houston Texans. So they're also playing to keep the Texans at bay. V, tell me which way you're leaning on this game and what you're targeting. Yeah, no, and you hit the nail on the head. Bo Nix is playing some of the best football of his career right now. right now. One of his highest graded games against a Green Bay defense that has been strong, one of the best defenses in the NFL all season. And one of the things that we've seen from Bo Nix is it's something we talked about all year. He's not a bad quarterback. He's never been a bad quarterback. The issue has always been needing him to stay within himself, needing to stay within his coaching, stay within his footwork, stay within his arm. And when he does that, he can really push the issue. And this is actually going to be one of those games where I think we are going to be able to see a high scoring output despite both defenses actually being very strong on paper. Jacksonville, over this span, if we even go back to some of their games, it's not just on offense that they've been great. They have been excellent on defense as well. Look at what totals we have in this game allowed. 6 points against the Chargers offense. You have 3 against Tennessee, which, I mean, it's Tennessee, but still 3 points in an entire football game is very good. And then we talk about Indy. Granted, they've been banged up. They've gotten hurt. It's been a tough break for them. 19 points there, and then 20 points against the Jets. Now, I mean, I talked last week about how I took the Jets to not score a point. I took the Jags to win in a shutout as well as them to cover as 13.5-point favorites in that game. But what we did see is this spread has to be way wrong because that says -4.5, and they were not -4.5. They were massive, massive favorites in that one. But what we did, yeah, it might even be 14.5, and it's just not listing that. But anyway, they cover, and frankly, they really could have kept them to 0 points. Now 20 is fine, but frankly, this team has been impressive defensively, but one of the issues that they continue to have is actually covering outside of the numbers. Their cornerback play, it's a bit touch and go. It's a bit up and down. I don't know what quite to make of it. They have one of the best interiors from inside the hashes. Linebackers, safeties, the front seven, that's one of the best units in the NFL. But something that we can see this Broncos team attack is outside of the numbers, where Bo Nix has actually started to excel even more. He's an excellent passer outside of the numbers. And just like you said, Courtland Sutton, he's having another resurgence here, and he's been excellent for them. He is going to have himself a day outside of the numbers. And then when we go on to the flip side, the big thing here is that while this Denver defense is still good, they are coming up against this Jacksonville team playing at its best. It has not played this good all season, even early on in the year when they were beating teams like KC at home. This team is playing their best football right now, and part of that is Trevor Lawrence. Actually, a lot of that is Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence right now is playing the best football of his career. Some of his highest graded games ever have come over the last 2 weeks. I haven't looked at the numbers regarding where he stands in the league over the last 2 weeks, but I would venture to guess it's probably at or right near the top of the NFL in PFF passing grade. I am with you there. While both of these defenses are good, I think both of these offenses are clicking at the perfect time, and this is going to end up being a shootout in this one with a lot of points. 46.5 is not high enough. I'm with you there. I'm taking the over. So let me preface this by saying I don't like it at 3 or 3.5. I'd be tempted at 2.5 because you get underneath that key number at 3, which we talk about all the time. The big thing for me here is that we've just seen some struggles with the Broncos laying points. Even though this isn't a really big number, we've seen some issues. Even at Mile High, they've struggled a little bit, with those points. If I'm getting 3 and the hook, I'm probably leaning Jacksonville, frankly, just because of what we've been able to see out of that offense. Now, you could see the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde of Trevor Lawrence, where he comes back down to earth, and it's not that situation where he is absolutely ripping the top off of a strong Broncos defense. But I think that that game's going to be super competitive where 3 and the hook is intriguing to me from a value standpoint. But Broncos winning this game, baby. Broncos winning this game. Let's call it 27 or let's do 28-27. I like that. I love that. Go Broncos. All right. And we've got a couple of other games on the slate here. These are going to be games that I am targeting in this one. And here we have the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into Detroit to take on the Lions. Lions, 7-point favorites at home. Game total on this one, 52 points. I'm siding with the Lions here. Frankly, I think we're putting a little bit too much weight into that previous game with the Pittsburgh Steelers. What I see is when we see this Detroit team play at home and against man coverage teams, they are one of the best offenses in the NFL. And I see a big situation here where the Lions can figure out a lot of stuff. They've had some trouble covering games. If we look at some of these games here, we have the loss to the Rams. They were 4.5-point dogs. We have the win against Dallas at home. They were 6-point favorites. Loss against Green Bay and a win against the Giants, -8.5. What I see is we're at home. The Lions are at home. They're going to be getting a man coverage defense where they can excel against it. And frankly, this Steelers defense has struggled mightily. And a big reason for that is because of their hesitance to get away from man coverages. I think they could figure some things out if they were to go into more zone coverages and really force teams to pick them apart. But I just don't see that being a case. And particularly when we talk about the Lions and Jared Goff himself, Jared Goff is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL from a clean pocket. That's something I talked about last week. But what he is not successful at is when he is pressured. And what we've seen is with this offensive line up front, I don't know that the Steelers are going to be able to get that pressure generated, particularly when you don't have TJ Watt, which in a freak accident, dry needling at the facility ends up having a collapsed lung and needing surgery, which is honestly a new fear unlocked for myself. I've never done dry needling, and now I definitely will not. But that's one of those situations where freak accident, now your best defensive player is no longer on the field. I am going to be taking the Detroit Lions in this one. I'm fading what we saw from the Pittsburgh Steelers and their offense this past week. When you talk about Detroit on the other side, another team that plays a ton of man coverage, I just don't know that Pittsburgh has the receiving threats to really match that. DK Metcalf, he's a strong receiver against man coverage, but that's really about all that they have right now against man coverage. Adam Thielen, he's going to be a step behind. I think he has a tough day, and I just don't really see where they're going to get production otherwise. V, is there anything you see in this matchup? Yeah, and I completely agree. And I mean, if we just look at some of their, previous games here, we have, the game at Baltimore. It's a divisional game. Sometimes you can see, those go either way. I think we talk about this Miami game. I frankly was not at all surprised at a Miami team coming out poorly in a game in Pittsburgh that was, I'm pretty sure, single digits and very cold out there. Not being able to come out and score more than 7 against a Buffalo defense, which ranks near the bottom of the NFL in pretty much every efficiency metric that we can come up with, particularly when it talks about on the ground stuff. Like I'm out on what we see on their offense. I don't think we're going to be seeing 27 or 28 like we saw over the last couple weeks, particularly against a Detroit defense that's going to play man coverage and have some sticky man coverage. I get that they're still pretty hurt in the secondary. I have confidence that what they're going to be able to see is the difference between these two defenses is actually more stark than it may appear. And the difference between offensive efficiency from both of these teams is going to be the big difference maker. Detroit -7, I think, is definitely going to be the value there. The last game on our slate here is the Monday night game. We have the San Francisco 49ers heading into Indy to take on the Colts. The San Francisco 49ers -5.5, -6 in some spots, depending on where you're shopping. And the game total on this one is actually 45.5, 46.5. I wrote about this game earlier in the week at 45.5. I like the over here, and it has actually moved as the week has gone on, up a point to 46.5. And the big thing for me here, I know what we just saw from this Indianapolis Colts team. I know that they played a strong defensive game against the Seahawks team that we just saw explode against the Rams. That's not typically what we see for this Colts defense. This Colts defense has struggled pretty much all year on the back end in that secondary. They give up one of the highest EPA per play rates. They give up one of the highest PFF coverage grades. They are struggling on the back end. Even when they had Sauce Gardner, even when they had Charvarius Ward, neither of those guys look like they're going to be playing in this game, I don't believe. And when we talk about that, even those guys didn't quite fix the problem. I think those run deeper into schematic issues for this Colts defense right now. And frankly, I think when you're coming up against a San Francisco offense that is starting to come into rhythm, that is starting to figure it out, you're going to have a tough time, particularly deep down the field. Brock Purdy, he played one of his most efficient and effective games under center last week since coming back from injury. I think he's feeling better. You're seeing them get healthier. They have more weapons. I don't really know a situation where I see the San Francisco 49ers not figuring this Colts defense out. I know that Sam Darnold had some struggles with it, but I'm going to be siding with the San Francisco 49ers producing in the passing game. On the other side of this thing, I actually like the Colts to be able to be effective on the ground with Jonathan Taylor. Now, I know that the story is Phillip Rivers. They got Phillip Rivers back, and some people are really bullish on getting Phillip Rivers back. Others aren't. I don't know. Just flipping on the tape, I felt like there's no velocity to the arm. I feel like he's going to be able to manage the game, but at the same time, there is some issues there with this offense not really functioning the same way when they aren't able to run that RPO game like they did early in the season. It's something that's going to be able to that you're going to have to watch for. But one of the things that I think will be a success for this Colts offense is going to be lining them up, running the football, and I think they can have a lot of explosive runs. If we talk about this 49ers run defense, it's looked very poor all season. We've picked on it quite a few times this year, but one of the things that they are very much struggling at is yards after contact per attempt. They allow 3.6 yards after contact per attempt. And you're talking about coming up against Jonathan Taylor, who's the only back in the NFL with more than 1,000 yards after contact per attempt. And we know that this guy can break a tackle and take it the distance at any single time. And I think when we see that versus a slow and methodical running game, I think you're going to have an opportunity for a point total. 45.5 is not terribly high, particularly if you talk about a San Francisco team that can put up 28 to 30 points. And we're talking about a Colts team who can come up with, the rest of that. I really don't think that 45.5 is a very big total. I got some pushback from some people on Twitter who disagree, and they anticipated this game total going down after I wrote that piece. And lo and behold, the game total went up. And that's because that's what the market sees. So, I'm on the side of going the over. V, is there anything that you're seeing in this one that I might have missed? Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely agree with you there. I think that Rivers, we saw some people who were rather bullish on him coming back, and even still now, like I saw one report of an anonymous GM who said that Philip Rivers is 10 times the option of any other quarterback that they could have had. You had Cam Newton coming out blazing mad about not getting an opportunity for this job, and hey, I think that at its core, he still is a guy that knows the offense. And while he's not going to rip the top off of the defense or really rip the ball down the field, I thought really the biggest issue for me was the arm just did not feel like it was there. And that's understandable. He hasn't really picked up and thrown a football, outside of the backyard for a while there. So, I'm not anticipating him being the guy that really, dictates this game. But I think if we do see a game script where Colts can get the ball, they can run it down their throat early, build up a little bit of a lead, and have the 49ers actually have to throw to answer, this could be a bit of a back and forth affair in two different aspects. So I'm right there with you. It is a bit of a weird one. It is a bit of an odd one, but it is going to be one that is interesting, particularly when we talk about the San Francisco 49ers at 10-4, where, hey, they're going to be right there in this thing, especially after given what we just saw this past week or this past Thursday, this last night with the Seahawks and the Rams. I mean, this division is the hottest division in the NFL. And this is part of the reason why, is because teams like the San Francisco 49ers, who were not supposed to win through all of their injuries, are now sitting at 10-4. And I think this next win would actually put them over their win total on the season. I think it was either 10.5 or maybe 11.5. Not quite sure off the top of my head, but definitely going to be an interesting matchup to say the least. And we have the end of the show. That's it for us. It was a nice show. That wraps us up for week 16. We are likely going to be back the same time next week. Might have some scheduling issues because I am going to be traveling this next week. But make sure you guys stay tapped into our Discord, and make sure you guys follow all of us on Important Nonsense on YouTube. Follow the Twitch at NonsenseFF. And of course, head over to importantnonsense.com, become a member. That's how you get into our Discord, and you can ask us any of your questions there. Ask the fantasy guys about your late playoff matchup, and of course, hit us up about any of the betting lines that you are targeting down the stretch. And of course, I think that about does it for us, V. Do you have any parting words for the folks at home?
Well, thank you to everyone for bearing with me with my Wi-Fi troubles. Hopefully, we cleaned it out during the second half of the show. But most importantly, enjoy the weekend. Lots of good football, college football playoffs as well, starting tonight. So enjoy the long weekend with tons of football. And then, yeah, we'll catch up next week during Christmas. And hopefully those Christmas games go well. Your Broncos have a lot of stuff to do to make it an entertaining Christmas Day NFL slate. So hopefully they can pull
Yeah.
through and we can have a nice
And
Thursday. So we'll catch up with everyone after that.
all right. And until next time, everybody, good night.